Welcome to Aging on the Suncoast. I'm your host, Jason Martino. It's not new knowledge that our communities in Pinellas and Pasco counties are aging at an unprecedented pace. With close to 1.5 million people aged 0 to 99 living in both counties, who wouldn't want to live lifelong in these beautiful and dynamic communities they help build? Thriving and living independently for all ages has its challenges, though. Enter age-friendly communities. The Area Agency on Aging of Pasco and Pinellas supports communities that promote and plan for successful aging in place. Today, that means the cities of Clearwater, Dunedin, Newport Richey, St. Petersburg, and Pinellas County. On today's show, we've invited Laura Cantwell, the Associate State Director of Advocacy and Outreach with AARP Florida, and Daisy Rodriguez, the Director of Pinellas County Human Services. Together, these two talented individuals will shed light on what an age-friendly community is and how other communities can adopt these principles. Laura, welcome to Aging on the Suncoast.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Oh, great. And Daisy, welcome to Aging on the Suncoast.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, great. So, Laura, I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
Overarching broad question. What is an age-friendly community?
Absolutely. Great question. The age-friendly community is an initiative that started with the World Health Organization in 2006. And it's based on a framework that really looks at how communities can better prepare for older adults and how they can become better communities for people of all ages. And globally, there are entire countries that are focusing on age-friendly. The entire country of Ireland has an initiative, and then here in the United States, AARP is the U.S. affiliate who has been leading the initiative. We started in 2012 and started working with communities across the United States. We started with 10 pilots, and today we have over 430 communities that are engaging in this work across the U.S.
That's phenomenal. So global,
yes,
nationwide, in Florida, right?
Correct.
How many communities are in Florida that are working on this initiative?
When we started in Florida, we had started in 2016 with 3. We're up to 35 now across the state that are engaging in this work, and in the state of Florida.
Really?
Yes.
That's incredible.
And we were one of the 3. Pinellas County was one of the 3 in 2016 when we joined the network.
Yes, you are, and that's why you're here today, Daisy.
Yes.
So what obviously Daisy represents a county, but there's many types of communities out there. What types of communities in Florida are applying the principles of the Age-Friendly Community Initiative?
Well, we have several counties like Pinellas County that are part of the initiative, and then cities, towns, villages that are engaging in this throughout the state. And then I mentioned in April of last year, the state of Florida joined the initiative. We were the 4th state in the nation to become designated as an age-friendly state, and kind of led the way for that. We now have over 6 states that are engaging in that work right now, and it's being led through the Department of Elder Affairs, through the Secretary, is leading the initiative here in Florida.
Yeah. But it sounds like the governor is also a big proponent of
Absolutely, absolutely. We joined, and thanks to the governor's support of this work and to really ensuring that Florida is a place that people can live and live well.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. So if how does they start the process on even investigating what the Age-Friendly Community Initiative is?
So if a community is interested in joining the Age-Friendly Initiative, one of the first things that is required is to make sure that you have buy-in from the highest elected official. So, for example, in the county, the Board of Commission, and a city, your mayor, for Florida, the governor, but to make sure that that highest elected official is interested in pursuing this work. And then once you have that commitment from your elected official, making sure you have some folks on the ground that are going to work together as a coalition to make sure it's moving forward.
Yeah, and Daisy, I guess that the highest elected official would be the chair of the.
It was the chair of the Board of County Commissioners.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's pretty neat that they would adopt these principles and apply it like that. So one of the buzzwords I've heard during some of my participation with age-friendly stuff is AARP's Livability Index. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Absolutely. Our Livability Index was really developed as a toolkit for counties, cities to use to see how well they're doing in terms of age friendliness. So it's based on 7 different areas, such like it looks at like parks. How close is a park to your home or to your city? And when the index was first launched, it was really unique in that it's the first data set that will give you a score for livability all the way down to the neighborhood, city, and up to the county level. So you can really look at it in several different ways to see how your own neighborhood is doing. So for those at home, if they're interested in pulling out your phone and looking at how your neighborhood's doing, you can just type in your address or your zip code and it'll give you a score to see how you're doing. And then we take that score and update it every few years so you can do a comparison to see how you're improving over time.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
that's a good barometer to almost like metrics in some ways.
Exactly.
So here's
exactly.
your baseline with the index, and then we've done these types of things in our community to improve them, and we can go back a couple of years later and see how that went.
And a lot of people have even used it because you can compare neighborhoods, you can compare cities. So it's also a good thing to use if you're looking at, looking at different places across your city to see how they're doing, or someone that's interested in moving. It's a good toolkit to use as well.
You actually just sparked some interest because I am thinking about moving, and now I'm going to go there and use that as well. Another buzzword that we use in the age-friendly community initiative is the domains of livability. What are those?
So when the Age-Friendly Initiative began, it was based on a framework from the World Health Organization. And that framework is looking at what they call 8 domains of livability. So it's focusing on the built environment. How is your housing, transportation, outdoor places, your parks, your outdoor buildings? How are they prepared for older adults? And then it looks at the social environment. So looking at social respect, inclusion, social participation, what kind of things are happening out in community, which Florida does an amazing job for that, and here in Pinellas as well. And then looking at what opportunities are there for civic involvement, for employment, for volunteerism. How can you really get involved in your community? And then the domains are looking at kind of overarching themes like communication. How are we communicating about this services that we have, and also healthcare? Do you have access to healthcare? Do you have a way to stay healthy and fit in your community?
Yeah, I know a little bit about the 8 domains, and so thank you for explaining that. Our audience has got a good description of what it was.
And if I could just jump in
please.
for a quick second.
Yes.
So
Yes.
the 8 domains, but Pinellas County also decided that it was important for us to add 2 additional domains. One is public safety and security, and the other one, living in Florida, is around emergency management.
Do you think emergency management is important in Florida, Daisy?
Critical. And I also understand that there are other counties and other municipalities that are looking at adopting that emergency management domain as well as part of their action plan.
Sounds like you've come up with the best practice that other folks could look at too, huh?
Well, it has been touted as a best practice by AARP.
Good. Be proud of it.
Yeah, thank you.
The Area Agency on Aging, we did a pretty large survey. We just finished it up in November of last year, the community assessment of older adults. We did it in Pasco and Pinellas County using a pretty highly regarded group out of Colorado. And the framework for that survey was parallel with the 8 domains of livability. So that's how much we respect AARP's and the World Health Organization's vision, really, to take a look at those 8 sections on there. We did not add anything. Actually, I think we did add a couple more questions when it came to emergency management on there as well.
Actually, we did. We were working on the steering committee, and we did want to make sure that we included some of those questions related to the domain on emergency management.
Which is so important here in Florida, across the state. Like you said, a lot of communities are also looking at that domain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So obviously other communities, they don't just have to stick with the 8 domains of livability. They can expand, and they can do whatever they want to do with that, right?
Correct. They can expand, as we heard from Pinellas County, has added a few domains. They can also, focused on just a few. So the 8 is a framework, but you can also focus on whichever few of those domains really make sense in your community. So for example, I know across Florida, we hear that transportation and housing are 2 big issues the whole state is focusing on. A lot of communities do look at those, but they may also collapse some of the social domains into one area and really look at what makes a welcoming community. So it really fits what the community is focused on and what they're working on.
Yeah, and because you have so much responsibility really within the state, Laura, to work with these communities over there. You have some understanding of what happens at the national level. Are you seeing those two types of things coming, being pretty consistent, the housing and the transportation?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think nationally everybody's looking at how can we make sure we have appropriate housing, affordable, accessible housing for people of all ages. It's a really big national issue. And then particular transportation. Do we have safe roads? Do we have different transit options?
Yeah.
Are really two big issues. And then something that's really fun to me and that we're seeing a lot more is looking at outdoor spaces and how do we make those more intergenerational. So parks that are not just for children, but they're also for older adults as well, where they have fitness equipment or they have activities that are happening.
And I happen to have a good amount of knowledge that AARP was instrumental for one of those parks in St. Petersburg.
Yes. This year, last year in 2019, it was AARP's 60th anniversary.
Oh, congrats.
And as part of that, we installed fitness parks across the U.S. And St. Pete was the first community to get a fitness park. And it's equipment that's really made for adults to use, that they can get out and exercise and engage with each other.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And congratulations on your 60th.
Thank you.
You're
Yes.
too young to be 60 years old. So these communities, let's say that they really like the Age-Friendly Community Initiative. They want to put it in play. There's a formal process to that. Do they have to do it alone? As AARP, do they assist them through the process?
This is definitely an initiative that's all about partnerships. You can see that in Pinellas and in St. Pete. So AARP is there to help guide the way. We have a lot of resources that talk about how do you approach this work, who are some community partners that make sense, and we have several here right now. The Area Agency on Aging has been a huge partner across the state with this work, and then also looking at other partners, your city, your county, universities. In St. Pete, we've worked with St. Pete College. And then looking at some, traditional partners. And then I know in Pinellas, when you were working on your initiative, Daisy, you guys had quite a plethora of partners that were at the table.
We did. We have a number of partners that have, we created some partner cards to see if people were interested, and currently we have 58 community partners that are affiliated and want to join in on this age-friendly initiative.
Yeah, and I remember really clearly that Pinellas County was also a big partner when it came to St. Pete's.
Exactly.
Because
we did a lot of collaboration together.
Yeah, you sure did.
Yeah.
And and sometimes you'll see in some communities that people operate in silos, and this definitely was not the case for that.
And I just want to add that from the AARP website, the toolkits that they provide, the resources that they provide, really was very instrumental when we were getting started with the initiative.
That's a great point, and I think when we go to break, we're going to talk about. We'll have some graphics up there to kind of highlight AARP's website and some of those tools that may be on it. Stakeholders. We talked about that this really starts with the highest level, the leadership within whatever community it is. They put forth that application, and obviously they have to be a believer of it too. Citizens or the residents too. Are they stakeholders as well?
Absolutely. A great example in St. Pete, which I know, Jason, you were really involved with that work. That's one thing that we did a lot of, is whole different community listening events to hear from the community, to hear from the residents. And another piece of that, besides doing like listening sessions, the communities all in some way do a survey or a community listening session to really get that feedback, because this is an initiative that is really listening to what older residents and really residents of all age, what they think is working and where we can make some improvements.
Yeah. If I was a resident and I watched the show today, I really liked the things that we talked about. How do I kickstart that idea?
As Daisy mentioned, we have a lot of really good information on our AARP website, which I believe you have the information up for everyone. I would suggest going there. You can see examples nationally of what communities are working on. And then we have a website with all of our Florida communities that talks about the survey process they did, their action plan. So that is a really great way to see what a community that might look like you, to see what they did and how they approached the process.
Yeah, and it's and I'm big on the community aspect of things as well. I'm so glad that Pinellas County and St. Pete really involved that. Laura, thank you so much for coming on and shedding a lot of light on the Age-Friendly Initiative. Daisy, thank you so much. We're gonna on the second half of the show, we're really going to get into Pinellas County and what you all have done. Please stay with us while we take a short break. As usual, don't forget to have a pen or pencil ready. During the break and at the end of our show, we'll be running contact information for the Aging and Disability Resource Center helpline, as well as for Pinellas County Human Services and AARP Florida. When we come back, we'll take a deeper dive into Pinellas County and their pursuit to becoming an age-friendly community.
Many of us don't want to believe that elder abuse, neglect, or exploitation can happen to a family member, a friend, or even ourselves. Elder abuse is a growing problem and is severely underreported. Many victims are reluctant to report due to fear, embarrassment, shame, or guilt. In order to prevent elder abuse, we must take action. Don't be afraid to talk about the issue and report it to the Florida Abuse Hotline at 1-800-962-2873. Together, we can make a difference.
Welcome back to Aging on the Suncoast. During the first half of the show, Laura Cantwell and Daisy Rodriguez helped us understand what an age-friendly community is. So let's continue this conversation and take a closer look at Pinellas County and the investment they've been working hard on. Laura, welcome back to our second half of the show. And Daisy, welcome back to the second half of the show.
Thank you.
We're going to spend a little bit more time with Daisy today because she was really instrumental in how Pinellas County took the principles from AARP, World Health Organization, and really applied it to the county. So let's start at the very beginning. Why did the county want to take a look at this, and what made them go in that direction?
Well, Pinellas County is densely populated. We have an estimated population of close to 1 million individuals, and 300,000 plus are the age of 60 and over. In our recent Citizens Value Survey of 2019, 97% of the residents indicated that they had trust in Pinellas County. And more importantly, 9 out of 10 said that they would recommend Pinellas County as a place to live, work, play, and thrive.
Wow, 97%. That's
97%.
Overwhelming.
Confidence.
Yeah, that's a pretty high confidence level on there as well. And you're right, our geography, we have a couple of different types of people here, in my opinion. We have the lifelong people that were born and raised here. You have folks that have moved here from other areas of the country, and they just love it here. And then we have our almighty tourists that brings a lot of our economy into play here, and they come back all deserving to delve themselves into the principles of age-friendly, or not even know it, but just experience the positivity of that.
Yeah, it's definitely a wonderful place to live.
Yeah. Did Pinellas County, we were talking about earlier on the show, about the livability index. Did Pinellas County use that as a tool to?
So we did not. We took a different approach. So rather than looking at the livability index, what we did was we did an internal inventory, if you will. So the approach that we took was the 15 departments under the Board of County Commissioners. We congregated together. We decided that there would be a champion or a leader for each of those areas, and each of those department champions would come up with their action plan for their individual department. And then with Human Services as the overarching lead, we took all of the department plans and created one overarching Pinellas County AARP action plan.
What a novel idea, huh?
Yeah.
And what a big responsibility for Human Services to lead that charge, but each department on there. And certainly that's acceptable, right, Laura?
Yeah, and I wanted to say that Pinellas County was the first community in the United States to take this approach to the work, and they have truly served as a leader across the nation of how they approached this and how they looked at it. And now we're seeing a lot more communities doing the same thing, really starting with that internal assessment of what's happening. And it's a best practice I share in my work across the state of one of the first things to do is to really do that internal assessment and look at what you're already working on.
That's twice I get
great.
to toot your own horn over here.
Yeah, isn't that great? Well, and actually, it was really the forward thinking and the vision and direction of our Board of County Commissioners that said, let's do an internal, let's look at this internally first, and let's celebrate what we're already doing, right? So for us, it was really about understanding what are we doing currently that fits into the age-friendly initiative, and then start building upon that.
That's such a great point to take stock and highlight and celebrate the things that you're already doing as well. We did the same thing in St. Petersburg. We did not want to approach it that we needed help in all the different domains that we worked on. We wanted to make sure that there were certain things that we just had right, that maybe need a little tweak in, or just maybe do a little research on ways that we can even improve what is already working on there. Going back to overarching process, Laura gave a great explanation before about the AARP's point of view, generally what she sees throughout the state and the nation and local communities of that. Tell us how Pinellas County and having Human Services at the lead, tell us about the process that you took.
So we joined the network in 2016, and in 2017 we received the designation. So it does take a little bit of time because there's the application and there's some upfront work that needs to be done.
Sure.
And then between 2017 and 2019, after we received the designation, the team, the champions, the department champions, if you will, really worked together, met every 3 months to look at the development of the plan. So it took 2 years to develop the plan and for us to put it all together. And then in 2019, in June of 2019, we received, AARP approved our plan and said, this is fine, you can move forward with that. So we're now at the implementation stage. So we're taking our plan and we're working and doing what we said we were going to do, each of the areas. We continue to meet on a quarterly basis with each of the department champions just to assess where we are and to make sure that we're continuing to move our processes forward.
Cool. So you mean that this wasn't just a beautiful plan that is going to collect a little bit of dust on a shelf somewhere?
It absolutely was not intended to be that, and the focus is that it has to be something that is actionable and something that we will be measuring and looking at where the successes are. So it is also fluid so that we can make tweaks and adjustments as we're moving along and as we continue to learn.
I'm proud of you.
Let me just, if I can, I just want to add also that over the 2 years that we were creating the plan, we also did listening sessions. We went to a lot of the senior centers and got their input. We have an online survey that if you go to our website, residents will be able to complete that survey. It's not too late to give us information, so we're happy to accept that and receive that as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's all good information. I think one of the things that I found pretty neat about this initiative, and myself, I work in a world that really devotes itself to people that are generally over 55, 60 years old, and they need a type of services to stay home. But this initiative really took a look at the diversity of your community and all different ages. I mean, I think our catchphrase for a while was, you know, what's good for an 8-year-old should also be good for an 80-year-old, and vice versa that way. Pinellas County is extremely diverse in their age and backgrounds and everything else. And so that really kind of ties in pretty well to the 8 domains of livability, because it really does touch all sorts of different demographics that way.
And again, we have 10. And since you touched a little bit on all ages, one of the unique opportunities that we took advantage of is Take Your Children to Work Day.
Oh.
And so we had children from 6 to 17, and we did an age-friendly presentation for them. We asked them, how old is old? So you can imagine that we got some very interesting responses to that.
Oh, I bet you did, yeah.
And then there's a great video on AARP, Disrupting Aging, that we showed them afterwards. And the response afterwards when we asked them, how old is aging now, was significantly different. But we do that, again, to start incorporating some of the younger generation to start thinking about what aging is and respect and inclusion and socialization. And we talked about the 10 domains with them. So just starting to set that framework really early with them.
And I remember some of the responses. It was so much similarity between what they were looking for in community and what we see from older adults as well. I remember one of the responses was focused on wanting to make sure they could get to the park and play at the park. So I think that's
pretty
really
important,
cool.
Laura.
Yeah.
For everybody, though.
For
really.
everybody,
I like the park too.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. The 10 domains. We can be here. We can do a whole different episode on how you approach those domains and why, and we could talk about examples. But pick a couple of good examples from some of the domains that you feel passionate about and what you all are doing.
Sure. So I want to share some of the easier ones. So as people are thinking about how to move forward or how to join as well. So under social participation, we're able to provide through our offices. We're able to provide information to citizens around low-cost, no-cost activities in the communities, events, free movies, etc. We talked a little bit under respect and social inclusion. We talked a little about intergenerational activities to take your children to work. One of the things that's really important to me is that my staff understand what aging in place is and what age-friendly Pinellas is. So we do a lot of staff meetings around that. We give updates on the age-friendly plan. We hosted a virtual dementia tour. which was really important, not only for the staff, but we also hosted it for our community partners during our quarterly network meeting. It was a real hands-on touch and feel of what it's like for folks who may be dealing with signs of dementia. We have a county website that is age-friendly, but we also recognize that not everybody uses the technology or wishes to use the technology. So really staying vigilant about the fact that not everybody wants to be on a computer and that there are folks that still want paper. So we've done that. There's a lot of work around protection and scam and fraud and making sure that all folks, but especially some of our more vulnerable seniors, are aware of some of the fraud and scam that does take place, unfortunately.
Well, how comprehensive. You really took a look at a lot of different things and applied them.
Yeah, and that's just to name a few. I mean, one of the other things that I think is really important, really easy, and something that we sometimes overlook is we created our paperwork now. The font is a little bit bigger in our offices. So it addresses some of the aging that takes place with our vision.
Kind of like my questions there.
Myself included, yeah.
Is that pretty consistent to what you're seeing around the state, Laura?
It is, and as we mentioned earlier, the adding in the emergency management is definitely something that we're seeing across the state, particularly post hurricane season here in Florida, really focusing on how can we make sure we're getting information out to older residents about for their safety and what resources are available.
Yeah.
And if I can just add to that, you know, we work very closely also with emergency management, which is one of the departments under the Board of County Commissioners, working with a lot of the mobile home parks and a lot of the 55 community, well, a lot of them are 55 plus communities, and prior to hurricane season is making sure that they have the information and they are prepared for hazards and that they know their zone and they know that they may need to evacuate. So we do a lot of canvassing together to ensure that people have the information that they need around emergency management.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Certainly, the residents that live in Pinellas County are currently and will continue to benefit from some of the changes that you and your teams through all the departments through Pinellas County that are working on right now. Pinellas County obviously has to have a return on their investment from looking into this too. What does that look like?
Well, I think some of it is recognizing and increasing the awareness about what aging in place is, right? And people's opportunity and willingness to want to stay in their own communities. There's a real investment there. Long-standing residents, there's a history and the heritage that is there that is, you know, beyond valuable when you think about building communities and how communities stay sustainable. There's also, you know, the tourism, and there's stability and sustainability around the communities.
Yeah, and neat stuff. Laura, we have maybe 30 seconds left before we're going to wrap up this pretty neat show here. Any communities in Florida that has that really standing out as a leader like Pinellas County? I guess I think like Sarasota, you know?
Yeah, Sarasota, which was the first community to join. They have some great examples of work that they're doing down in Sarasota. And they have a website too, Age Friendly Sarasota, where you can look to find out more. And then also I would say Miami-Dade County has been a real leader. For example, they developed a park guide on what makes an age-friendly park. So that's another great place to look at examples.
And I know Dr. Kathy Black, she's been a real leader with you around the state to kind of help other communities.
And if I could just quickly add that we actually looked at both Sarasota and Miami when we were embarking on creating our age-friendly plan as well.
Yeah,
it was very helpful, yeah.
And why not, if they have great ideas.
Sure.
Laura, really happy that you're able to come on our show today. Daisy, thank you so much for coming on our show today and expressing so much good information about what you all are doing and our community is actually doing. We hope you enjoyed this month's broadcast. We also hope this episode sparked your interest as a leader in your community to research and advocate for communities to adopt the principles you heard about today. Pinellas, Pasco, and all the communities within are not only places of destination, yet they are exceptional places to call home for a lifetime. We'll see you next month, and until then, please enjoy the spaces that bring you joy and pay it forward for the next generation.
Many of us don't want to believe that elder abuse, neglect, or exploitation can happen to a family member, a friend, or even ourselves. Elder abuse is a growing problem and is severely underreported. Many victims are reluctant to report due to fear, embarrassment, shame, or guilt. In order to prevent elder abuse, we must take action. Don't be afraid to talk about the issue and report it to the Florida Abuse Hotline at 1-800-962-2873. Together, we can make a difference.